Hi, I'm Catherine Parker. I only eat raw vegan food. I've done that for a couple of years now, and I run workshops at home and I teach people how they can incorporate more raw food into their diet. Once you cook food, you destroy an awful lot of the goodness. You destroy most of the vitamins. Most vitamins are heat sensitive. You also destroy the enzymes that are naturally present in the vegetable and fruit. And we need enzymes to digest the food. As we get older, our body runs out of enzymes because we keep on feeding our bodies this cooked food. There are no enzymes in the food, so our body has to manufacture its own enzymes, and after a while the belief is that they just run out. If you're taking in fresh fruit and vegetables, the enzymes come with the food, and so it just digests it. Your body can cure anything. By giving it raw food and juices, you're just giving it a rest, so it doesn't have to deal with all the rubbish, and it just cures itself. We also believe that we're not supposed to eat meat. If you look at the layout of our insides, our guts, if you compare it to carnivore, totally different. We're just not meant to digest meat and fish. I just don't think it's right. Some people that call themselves raw fooders and they eat meat, I don't understand that, because I know once I decided to go raw, and I wasn't vegan before I went raw, I used to eat meat. Once I went raw, your body changes on such a cellular level that you can't really countenance eating something that used to be alive. I believe we were all put on this world to all live together. Okay, so let's be all fluffy and airy-fairy about it. I don't believe we have the right to take an animal's life away. I believe we were here to look after the animals, not to just kill them and use them. It's something like a sheep or a pig. It is intelligent and it has feelings like we do, but it's very taxing on your body to digest it, so it's not good for you. Your guts are very, very long, because we're supposed to live mainly on a vegetarian diet, so they're very long, so there's time for it all to be absorbed in. Carnivores have very, very short guts, so the meat can pass through quickly, because that meat is hanging around in our guts for maybe a week, by which time it's pretty much gone rancid. It's actually apparently now been proved in quantum physics that any thought one cell has, all the cells in your body have that same thought. So if you feel happy, every single cell in your body feels happy. Okay, so an animal is terrified because it knows something is going to happen. That's then shot through its entire body, and I believe it's then stored in that body. And then you're eating the animal's fear, and I don't want to take animal's fear inside me. I think because most people cook their food, it does kind of dull your senses, and I think you're just not particularly aware of things. I can kind of feel what's going on more. I have friends that have been raw for much longer than me, and they're just so much more sensitive to things and feelings and what's going on, and it's difficult to explain, but you change on a cellular level, because your body basically starts detoxing, because you're only taking good things in. Your cells just start getting rid of all the rubbish that they've been storing. Because fat is not necessarily taking in tons of calories. A lot of fat is just storing toxins. The body's really clever. It knows what to do. It stores it away from the organs, so it doesn't affect the organs. So you get this fat, which is really just stored toxin. My mother always says to me, "Oh, you can't still be detoxing." And I'm like, well, okay, I'm 42. So for 40 years, I ate some processed. Yeah. So for 2 years I've eaten raw food. Well, yeah, I think probably it's going to take more than 2 years. Juice, your body doesn't need any energy. It just absorbs all the goodness, and it doesn't have to digest anything. I like to make more raw dishes, because I like to show people that it's not just about eating salads. You can make anything raw. And obviously that's still a bit harder on your body, because you're using nuts and seeds. I do spend a fair amount on food, because I buy the best organic vegetables that I can find, and I do eat superfoods and things, and because they suit my body and they make me strong, and I like them, they work for me.
Do you think this new movement in eating is a good response to the current food shortages?
We can't really carry on the way we are, where people are just not really aware of what they're eating, and they're just going, my sandwich and my can of Coke and bag of crisps used to be £5 every day, now it's £8. But it did make me think, well, I don't understand why I'm paying £3.50 for a bag of spinach, which is only going to last me for a few days. I thought, well, why don't I start growing my own when a pack of seeds costs £1? So I did start, and then the slugs got them all, and then I got some copper thing, which seems to have made a difference.
So that works then, does it?
Yeah, because they've grown you know, they've grown a lot. So yeah, it's not very much, but then that was just a few seeds, and then I grew some chard,
Mhm.
you know, and some parsley.
Mm.
And it's not very much because I don't have much space.
Mhm.
There's a parkland walk up there, and I go running in the park, and I run back
Mhm.
along the parkland walk, and I take my plastic decorating gloves and a plastic bag, and I pick all the nettles, and I come home and juice them. I've actually made nettle pesto,
Really?
which people are a bit nervous about eating it because, you know, you have to blend it a lot, and I actually think juicing is probably safer. I used to pull all the dandelions out by the roots, and now I eat the dandelion leaves because they're edible and they're so good for you. Well, I would be happy if the whole lawn was dandelions, because to
Mhm.
me that
Mhm.
would be a whole lawn of food.
Uh-huh.
And because I don't pull them out and my husband doesn't really do any gardening, they will take over, which is great because I doubt he'll do anything about it. I've only recently actually thought about growing my own vegetables because I didn't really know how to do it before,
Right.
and I thought it would be too much like hard work. I had friends who were talking about the Mayan prophecy, you know, the world's going to end in 2012, and I don't want you to think I'm some kind of fruitcake. It's not that the world's going to end, it's just we actually can't carry on the way we are, and something is going to happen. Now, I know some people that say the goddesses are going to rise, it's going to be the women, you know, because, yeah, who knows what's going to happen? I have absolutely no
But the
idea.
women will be running the world, yes?
Yes, and so it'll be a lot more compassionate. And if we run out of fuel, the supermarkets will be empty of
Oh,
food
yeah.
in 2 days or
Yeah.
something, won't they? Because they all depend on transport. So I have friends that are saying, Catherine, you've got to start growing your own vegetables because if there's a fuel crisis, there's not going to be any food for anyone. Why, you know, you have a garden, why don't you do it? You know, if you're a vegan, you use 10% of the water that someone who eats meat, right? Because most of the water in the world goes towards feeding and looking after livestock.
Oh, really?
So much of the food in the world goes towards feeding livestock. If we didn't have all these farm animals, there'd be all this land that could grow crops. The farmer doesn't have to deal with all these animals and slaughtering them and everything.
Mhm.
It's kind of quite generally known now that cows, you know, they belch out methane and carbon dioxide, and
Sure
they're
do.
actually contributing so much to greenhouse. It's just an animal. How can an animal be harming the environment? It would be controllable, but there are just too many cows. There's enough in the world to feed everyone, but not if we carry on eating as much meat as we do. We're not eating meat, so we're just leaving a much smaller ecological footprint. We do try to support our local places, and you know, organic farming has got to be better for the environment. It's also got to be better for the farmers because they're not spraying.
Mm.
All of that gets into the water. It eventually all ends up in the sea. We end up drinking it, don't we?
Mm.
We're never ill, ever, so we don't need to take any horrible drugs that doctors and hospitals force on you the minute there's something wrong with you. Again, where do all those drugs and hormones and antibiotics and things that people take, well, they all end up in the water eventually. I mean, a lot of raw fooders eat a lot of wild foods because it's free, and wild foods are the best for you. You know, there's more goodness in a dandelion leaf than in anything you can grow or buy from a shop. So I do know lots of people that pretty much survive on wild foods. Raw fooders do think about food quite a lot as it is, because you kind of have to, because you have to plan food ahead a lot, because obviously it's not easy when you're in the real world to only eat raw food. And if you're also growing your own food, you don't want food to take over your life, because being a raw fooder is not all about the food. A lot of people don't really understand that. It starts off being about the food, and then actually after a couple of years, the food isn't so important. I think the growing your own food, I think that realisation is going to come a few years down the line. It's like taking someone who's eaten their toast and their sandwiches 3 days a week working in an office. It's like suddenly turning them into the good life. You know, how hard would that be? Anyway, you probably don't want to repeat that. I'll shut up now.